Hello, all. My name is Jessica Chauhan, and the media type that I will be discussing today is Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is a program used for creating vector images in different design forms. It's a tool that I think many are intimidated by, but is very approachable, and you can definitely be self-taught in it. So that is the program that I'm going to be using to showcase today. A little bit background about me. I am a fashion designer. I've worked in multiple companies such as Lululemon and Aritzia. I've even done freelance, and I've dabbled in teaching a little bit. So Adobe Illustrator is a huge part of what I do, and I really wanted to focus that for my project because it's just an exciting tool to use, and I'm really jazzed to introduce it to you. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen and begin walking through Adobe Illustrator. So showing this presentation today to you, I'm actually showcasing it on Adobe Illustrator. I thought about maybe using a different format of presentation, but I thought I want to show you the workspace of Adobe Illustrator just to kind of get a feel for it. It really is a bit of a throwback to, the Paint program that was originally on computers back in the day. This is a much designer level of that, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. And Adobe programs, such as Photoshop, Lightroom, the whole creative suite of programs has over 26 billion, no, sorry, 26 million 26 million subscribers. So that's a lot of people using these programs, especially Adobe Illustrator, and we're going to jump into more of that in a bit. Before I jump into my presentation, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered today on the traditional ancestral and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. Today's agenda goes as follows. So we're going to talk about excite and motivate, educate, stats, a little bit about engaging, evaluating, and then resources. Excite and motivate. I'm really, really passionate about Adobe Illustrator. It is the program that I still use the most to create on, and majority of the jobs and work I do, I would say 90% of the work that I do is on this program. So there's multiple things that you can use Adobe Illustrator for. There's logos and symbols and icons, such as if you're trying to describe, a thinking symbol or a plane symbol for travel or a location symbol as a pin. It could be as simple as making a font or using a font to create a brand name, and that could be a logo or a symbol. You could do something polar opposite on Adobe Illustrator, such as infographics. So that's really getting ahead and showcasing, when you think about a textbook and like a science textbook, grade school science textbook, and you think about all the things, all the images that are included in there, a bulk of those things are created on Adobe Illustrator. So that's really the details, the specs of it. You could also do fun drawing illustrations, art projects, which are really, really cool and allow you to experiment a lot with the program. There's also packaging design, which you could use packaging design in a multitude of different programs, but Adobe Illustrator is one of those programs that you could use for that. Because I'm in fashion, I have to throw in technical drawings or CADs, which are computer animated designs. Now, with the field that I'm in, I draw garments, but if you were in interior design, you could draw furniture, appliances, you could draw things like plants, you could draw maps, you could draw tools, really anything. And then, of course, drawing in fashion illustrations again because of my background. But the thing about Adobe is that there's really endless possibilities to create. And something within the past couple of years that have happened with Adobe is that you can now do 3D renderings. It's not as advanced as using something like Photoshop, or there's another program such as Rhinoceros, where you can really sculpt and create 3D objects. but you can do really basic 3D modeling on Adobe Illustrator, which I think is really cool and is something that I'm looking forward to learning myself. So I think the actual parameters of what you can do on Adobe are quite endless. Adobe is a vector-based program. So that means that as far as you zoom into the creation of what you're making, it'll be pixel perfect. So just to show you an example, the font that I've used in this program, if I zoom in very, very close, very just all the way into this font, you can actually see that there are no jagged lines. Everything is crystal clear. And that is because that is what Adobe Illustrator is. It is really using the smart tools to create crystal clear, crystal perfect images. And we'll get into more about why this is so important a little bit later. So educate. How does this media tool educate? Um, Around the circle here, I have the 7 principles of adult learning: self-direction, transformation, experience, mentorship, mental orientation, motivation, and readiness to learn. And I really started to think about how does it? And I think that when I started to think about things, as a professional, as an adult learner, some of these things are really important, such as best file recovery. How many times have we been in a situation where maybe the quality of work that we've saved hasn't been very good, or it's taking too long to load, or etc., etc. You can save Adobe Illustrator files in a multitude of different ways: low resolution, print resolution, high resolution, default. There's so many different parameters where you can select what type of file is best for you. Um, the quality of artwork, again, just going over that, is crystal clear and perfect with whatever you draw. So whether you're drawing something from scratch and you save it as a small file size, you're still going to have a really, really amazing file outcome. The versatility of the software, I think, is really major with Adobe Illustrator. You can really kind of take away so many different types of techniques, and that kind of leads to that there are so many different types of routes to kind of get you to the same outcome, really. So if you, for example, coloring in a circle, you could use the fill tool, you can use the live paint tool, you can draw the circle with a fill. And those are just 3 ways that you can fill or color in a circle on this program. And it kind of just becomes your intuition with what works the best for you and what tools do you want to use moving forward. I have certain preferences versus my boss, versus my supervisor, versus other colleagues that I have, on how to use Adobe. It's very intuitive, and you're using it for what makes sense to you. So there's many different routes to kind of get you to where you kind of want to be. Um, there's also a lot of different library tools. So the way that this program is set up to educate you is it shows you how user-friendly it can be. Now, if you glance towards the right side, you can see all of these colors are already pre-made and in the file ready to go. There's a little library button where you have different types of colors by themes already set up, which is just, for easy accessibility. That little library exists not only for color swatches, but for brush types, for certain symbols, so on and so forth. There are so many already built in categories of readiness that are ready to work with in this program. And I think that kind of goes back to Excite, because you're always kind of discovering things, filters, effects, the way to create things. It is really exciting. And it's also self-directional, as you learn different things as you go along. You go, I wonder if this program could do this. And you do a little Google. Oh yeah, it can. This is how you do it. Boop, 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 done. And it becomes routine to you, and that's kind of how it works. And in another sense, I think about this tool as a very, very, very fancy, elevated PowerPoint. It doesn't have any animation features, and it's not intended to use as a slideshow, but you can still use the blank canvas in the similar way that you would use a blank canvas on PowerPoint by creating text boxes and objects and backgrounds and all of those really fun things. Canva is a new tool that's been out to the public now for a few years, and that's kind of like the dumbed down version of Adobe Illustrator. A bit more user friendly because I think that's kind of how they market it, but really all of those functions again can be applied to Adobe Illustrator. So anyways, going back to educate, how does this media tool educate? These are just some of the things that I've covered with how this tool can educate. I wanted to go over some facts. So I mentioned before that there are 26 million subscribers to the Adobe software suite. And that's really, really important because it kind of goes to show that it's not just used for one specific thing, and not to be intimidated by a program like this that seems like, wow, there's so many buttons everywhere, there's so many brushes and tools and things. Where do you start with a program like this? But play is kind of the biggest factor with Adobe. You're really playing around with it. So yes, it's used for, logos and drawings and vector artwork. But although that there is such a high learning curve, it is easy to use, and there are those different routes to get you to different places. So these are just some facts that I wanted to pop onto this page. Again, primary purpose is to create images and design from scratch. Resolution when zooming in and out is the exact same quality. Although the flexibility level and learning curve is high, it is user-friendly. You can also transfer these files to be a little bit more design savvy, such as an EPS or an SVG file. You can save as a PDF, you can export to a PNG or a JPEG. It really just ranges all across the board. So how does this media tool engage learners? So when I'm trying to engage learners, I really want to show off the really amazing features of this. And I can't say that Illustrator has really disappointed me in many ways. It's been a very amazing tool for me to use over the years, not just in fashion, but also in graphic design, also in personal life, things like that. Creating posters such as the ones behind me, or creating what are they called, games for a bridal shower. It really ranges. So I think that this engages learners by allowing them to create virtually with these brushes and pens and inks and all these tools that are on a digital surface, which I think is sometimes a way of reframing your mind of how things work. I know that a lot of people are tactile and want pen to paper, pencil to paper, paintbrush to paper. But what happens when you can do that on a computer? And I think that idea can engage learners. I think you can also engage learners by kind of showcasing how simple it is just to use paths and objects, which is the basis of Adobe Illustrator and creation on here, and manipulation of that. So taking a star and maybe making a flower with it. And that kind of manipulation of getting from the simplicity of point A to the complexity of point B is really something to engage the learner on the process of Adobe Illustrator. And finally, I think Adobe Illustrator is perfect for those starting fresh in the world of design, period. Whether you want to dabble again in something as simple as making posters, or creating a save the date card, or a birthday invitation, to then really designing and developing something from scratch, like a logo or an icon or a symbol. So I think that those are all ways to engage the learner, whether it's a personal project or something that can be used in their profession. This was a really interesting slide for me to put together because when I think about how this program can be used to assess learning, um, I could really only think about innovation. I really think that innovation and pushing the bounds of one's creativity is the way to go for evaluating learning. Um, I think being impressed with yourself and having the willingness to try something new and experiment and fail is a huge learning curve with this program, and that is how to evaluate it. As a instructor, as a teacher of this program, I think that the failure part of it is really big, because with failure comes success, because you realize what you're doing wrong, and it's almost a bit of a full circle moment. And I've had students in the past that have had that full circle moment, and me myself, I've had that full circle moment. So I think that pushing the bounds of your creativity through this program is a good way for someone like an instructor to evaluate a learner's success through the program. And then innovation in the way that the program is always evolving and always updating. The tools and basics are always the same, but things like how I mentioned the 3D renderings is new to the program, stylizing effects, things like that. How to take your designs above and beyond, how to take what you're thinking in your head and push the limits, and always kind of having that willingness to learn, I think is really quite important. And to end off the presentation, I just have my resources listed, where I kind of received some of the facts throughout the presentation, where some of that imagery came from, and etc. So that's kind of the end point there. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I think that when I think about the Q&A portion of this presentation, I really hope that I can kind of intrigue people to think about how to use Adobe Illustrator in their day-to-day lives. And really that excite and motivate bit, I think, is really prominent to me, because the intimidation, I think, when using such a, highly designy looking software, something that you need a subscription for, things like that, can be very intimidating. But this media tool, I think, was designed was created for everyday people to really elevate the work that they're doing. So whether you're doing a report and you need infographics, or even just symbols, a chart, something that's a bit more dynamic than what you can see in, PowerPoint or Excel that can create for you. This program, I think, is really, really special in doing that. And I'm really passionate about Adobe Illustrator, hence why I chose it for my media type today. So to end off, I hope you enjoyed this live Zoom session, and I look forward to hearing any and all feedback. Thank you so much. Have a great day.